What I think about this mid-century modern stuff is I like the history, the progression of classical art into what it became in the 20th century. I think it's all counterculture. All these artists started off classically trained, most of them, and they rebelled against the classical training that they had, and they saw how far they could push the art into the abstract, into cubism, into all these weird frontiers that nobody ever thought of. And the same thing with the furniture and the 20th century modern design movement in the 40s and 50s, where it really kicked off. After World War II, the United States propaganda machine painted America like Norman Rockwell. You know what I mean? That everybody was rich, everybody was prospering, but it wasn't like that for everybody. That spurned the counterculture of the beat poets, and then from the beat poets, it moved into the counterculture of the 60s. So to me, it's all one big swift movement from left to right. Modern design furniture wasn't a thing. It was architects who designed these elaborate, interesting looking homes, and then they wanted to furnish them themselves to fill the spaces, not only make the house, but actually fill those spaces in with their ideas. Each person was different. Each designer had their own fingerprint, their own DNA that they would put in each design. That way, when you saw it, you knew it was theirs. Like this chair that I'm sitting in. I mean, this chair is iconic, and as soon as you see it, you know it's Herman Miller. It was created by Ray Eames, and you can see 1,000 of them, and you'll always know. What I think is cool about this sale is the different estates that all came together at the same time. We have mid-century modern collectors, modern art collectors, and then we got a world-famous counterculture icon. I mean, Albert Grossman and his estate down the South. We never, ever get stuff like that.
He created the Peter, Paul, and Mary. That was the first group that he managed. Through them, he met Bob Dylan. And then later, he met Janis Joplin. We have a photo of Mr. Grossman with Janis Joplin taken by a very famous photographer, Elliot Landy. Then there's another photograph of Janis taken by the more famous godfather of rock and roll photography, Jim Marshall.
And that photograph was actually used on one of the cover of her greatest hit albums.
It was. Yeah. And then there's another photo in there. We can't attribute it to any photographer. It's Robbie Robertson of the band. It also looks to be a Jim Marshall, but it is not identified as such by us. Albert Grossman founded Bearsville Recording Studio in Woodstock, New York. A very famous studio. A lot of famous artists recorded there. When he passed, REM recorded there, and what we have in the showcase of the 3 lots are all to Sally Grossman from the record labels for the sales of REM album. I believe it's 3 different albums.
The Allen Ginsberg stuff, me trying to collect beat poetry items, they're the only signed Allen Ginsberg I've ever personally seen. And then the books he signed also were from another famous poet, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who owned the bookstore and pressed those books for him. And really just died in the last few years. Lived to be 101, 102.
In addition to that, it's made out to Albert and Sally Grossman. They owned a farm in Woodstock. And in that little poem, he mentions being on the farm, the cook stove. I mean, so he mentions being on their farm. So, I mean, he had to have been somewhat a friend of his. He was the only one that really moved into the counterculture in the city.
He kept modern. Horsco, who's also on the record album. We have a record album in the sale with Allen Ginsberg singing. There's another beat poet on that record also, trying to sing or playing an instrument. We also have in the sale a record that has Lawrence Ferlinghetti's poems and Kenneth Rexroth's poems from the mid-1950s. Great beat poetry. They're signed, but they're not authenticated autographs on that album, but they are signed.
And then the other estate we got, the family was from New York, and they were friends with this designer about the Samson Berman. Apparently, they came to him and said, furnish our entire house. He picked out everything, and he completely furnished their house, built in pieces in the house, so that when they moved to Durham, they took everything that wasn't bolted down. They kept all the original receipts, and that's what's cool too. All the original receipts handwritten by Samson Berman for almost every piece that we have there. And I think probably the most unique piece in the sale, that's most definitely one of a kind, is this coffee table. I mean, he did make more of these, but the fact that he hand signed it and numbered it number 1, I'm assuming, and the family says that this was made and designed for that family, for that house. And then he continued to make it afterwards because they liked it so much. He liked it so much.
Beautiful teak wood construction, laminated.
Hand signed on the brass inlay strip. And then the third estate that came in, she collected everything. She was a professor of anthropology in Hawaii. And apparently she just bought whatever she liked. She would buy modern art, and it was the Joan Moreau. That was great. That was an incredible find. She bought it, never displayed it, packed it up, sent it to her brother, and it sat there for all this time until we came. That and the Sweet Biblique, and that thing was never touched.
Hey, and some of the other stuff that came into sale in mid-century modern, we have a pair of Zenith leather transoceanics. One made for the U.S. military in 1954, and amazingly still kept in stock and used at the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Really?
Yes. We also have a mid-century modern years Western Electric Cardmatic tube tester that uses punch cards to test tubes. Very fascinating technology, very outdated nowadays.
We have a very nice selection of musical instruments that came into sale.
Through various estates, a alto saxophone, a tenor saxophone, and a professional quality French-made buffet clarinet. Later in the sale, we're going to have a baritone saxophone in the sale, a sousaphone, and a baritone horn. There's also a trumpet in the sale also. Very high quality instrument.
As the sale goes by, things are coming in every day. Week by week, we get more and more items. We got a rare LeCoultre Atmos clock. We always get the basic model that you see hundreds of. Solid gold purse.
Jewelry, nice jewelry in the sale. A Rolex watch also. So we got nice jewelry in this session.
I learned a thing from one of our estates. I went into an attic, saw a lamp in there, just sent it down, got it to the auction and saw that it was signed, looked it up, and it was Pavo Tynell, a brass lamp from Finland. And they bring thousands of dollars. I had no idea. It was worth that kind of money. So I'm still learning as I go every day.
My favorite actually in the sales is lot 109 here, the eyeball lamp.
Last week I went to a storage unit for a lady who helps us out a lot. Her father was an architect. So we got a lot of his architecture books. He's got mid-century modern stuff. And I found that Angel Patello linocut. Apparently those are really rare and sought after too. His actual real paintings bring hundreds of thousands of dollars. His limited edition pieces still bring 10, 20, 30,000. So that's going to be interesting to see sell. And I think there's another video coming up about the Hubach doll, which is one of our highlights for this sale. In one of the estates,
Oh, yeah.
in a box, about to go to charity. Really? That's a rare bottle of wine. I had no idea. 1870.
Madeira from Portugal. It's a type of port wine. But it's a sealed bottle from the 19th century.
We've been getting this sale ready for several weeks. I think it's going to be a good sale. I mean, I'm excited to see what everything's going to bring. Prices are already high now, but it's going to be a treat just to see this whole thing play out.